Welcome to episode 619 of the Barcelona podcast, brought to you by the Blue Wire Podcast Network. I'm Dan Hilton, and yes, I'm still under the weather, but fortunately, I am back into my regular home. And where I went on a little vacation to visit a friend in South Carolina. We didn't have any power, and I was also pretty sick at the time. I'm still recovering. You can still hear it. So I didn't do anything for the Osasuna match other than watch that. So I don't really have many thoughts. We'll finish that in the first headline, but did I say headlines? Yes, because there are 5 headlines that we've got going because it's a big night. Champions League match, 5 goals. So of course, the 5 headlines was going to be the way to answer these questions. All right, let's get in. Before that, you got to subscribe, of course, to either the YouTube video, which give it a like. That helps out a lot. Leave a comment and all that, or follow along on the podcast apps. If you want to join me on the watch-alongs, which I did do for this match, which is always a great deal of fun, it's public information now, but Premier League clubs are already doing the tactics board. And we're going to have that for the Liga clubs before you know it. So get on that early. So when it's time to break down stuff on the tactics board, you'll be there with me for that so we can break all that down. But for now, it's time to break down the 5 headlines from Barcelona's 5-0 win in the Champions League over Young Boys. Headline 1, Lewandowski in the 8th. Barcelona started this match on the front foot, which is always good news. And before I set up the goal, this is the first headline, but obviously I had to jam a lot of goals and action into every headline. So let's set the scene first. This was the best 11, I think, with Eric Garcia with that red card, even maybe without the red card that Hansi Flick could have put forward as far as players in form, as far as players that you would trust in a unit, in a structure that was going to press hard and win the ball back consistently, win those 50-50s. Because after Osasuna with heavy rotation, let me just give you my one thought from that game. There was a lot of rotation, and I was actually surprised that Flick went with the team that he did, because I figured that it would be a lot of rotation. I said this against Adafe, and then he would try to start his best 11 against Osasuna, who's a top 10 side in the Liga, and then against Young Boys in the Champions League. But, he decided, that being Hansi Flick, to start his best 11 and have them rested and rotated for this Champions League match, because he's showing you that he does prioritize the Champions League, which I think makes fans happy. And, they still could have got a result against Osasuna, but they didn't. Because I think the one real weakness of Hansi Flick, and I'd love to break this down with tactics later on, again, on Big Up in future matches when we see this. Well, hopefully I never have to break this down because this is not an issue, but I think it will be. That high line is fine, but then when Barca are losing those 50-50s in the midfield, then you're going to be in danger if you're running a back line with Gerard Martin and Sergio Dominguez, and then you're consistently getting beat for pace. Both those players had a little bit of trouble with their positioning against Osasuna. So again, if you're going to rotate your back line and lose your 50-50s and play that high line, that is no surprise. Osasuna, who's a good side, scored 4 against Barcelona. That's really the only note I have against Osasuna. That's why I think they lost the match. And as players continue to get back who are starter material, I think those concerns hopefully will be less and less as the rotations lead to a little less of a drop-off from your starters to your bench rotation players. Well, again, rotations for this match meant that everybody in that starting 11 that was available was back in this match. And even though Young Boys looked to be the team that you would rotate against because they're 11th of 12th in the Swiss Super League table, which they do look like that, it's still the Champions League. You don't take anything for granted, and Flick did not take anything for granted with the lineup he went with. And that lineup was ready to play. They started on the front foot. First, even 5 minutes in the match, it was 75% Barcelona possession, and it stayed that way. 8th minute, the first goal was scored. A little bit of luck, be Lewandowski. That's what I was going to call this headline. But Rafinha scuffed a shot into a pass. That was definitely a shot, not a pass, but still worked out for Barcelona. It's really what created this goal that's more impressive. It was good, close association between Rafinha, Casado, and then Torres pinging that ball out to Lamine Yamal on the wing, and then Rafinha continuing his run from the middle to that near post, getting in the half space from Lamine Yamal, and then Lewandowski, right place at the right time, keeping himself onside, a big part of the puzzle as well. And Barcelona on the other side of things, stepping really well to start this match to get Young Boys offside. And it seemed like Young Boys, they were a bit naive in just how offside they were to start this match, and it wasn't working out for them. Headline 2 is the man in the middle. It did feel like, and speaking about this on the watch along in that first half, that Barcelona were missing Dani Olmo. You could tell that really quick movement between and associations between the midfield in the center of the field, in the not even the final third, but in that second phase of play was missing today. And that's not really what Rafinha is. That's not what he's meant to do. And I thought Rafinha was as good as Rafinha could be in that position. And the fact of the matter is for Barcelona today, that even without that close association in the middle of the field, as much as we would normally see, they were still overloading the midfield and dropping in Ferran Torres, Rafinha, and Lewandowski, all three players who are comfortable with their back to goal. And I think that got the job done in the middle of the park. Pedri also had a really good day too. Now, more importantly than the good things that Barcelona were doing in their attack, young boys were also making mistakes and giving up opportunities, and that's how the 2-0 is scored. Giving up fouls, that being young boys, giving up corners, giving up set-piece opportunities. It's Lamine Yamal and Rafinha from the dead ball, gets the Pedri in the middle, and he lets it roll across his body. Good skill for the shot, and instead of getting the goal, he hits it right into the head of one of the other players, and Rafinha gets the deflection, pounces on it, and finishes, makes it 2-0, and now Barcelona are in a ton of control in this match. Headline 3 is young boys' youthful mistakes. Young boys, if you look at their lineup, wasn't actually that young at all. Most of their players were between 25 and 30 years old, but there were a lot of naive mistakes for a side that is not playing with a lot of confidence. As I said, they're struggling in the Swiss Super League, and those struggles clearly bled into the Champions League here. The 3-0 from Inigo Martinez, it comes because, once again, a bit of naivety, because Lamine Yamal was in his bag today. A lot of tricks from him. You're going to see a lot of the highlights. And even though I don't really talk about his impact on the match, he was requiring not one, but 2 or 3 young boys players to come over to him. And Montero in particular, he was having a really tough time. And that foul that he committed with Lamine Yamal getting triple teamed, and then he stepped to him, commits the foul anyway. That can't happen. Those are the examples of the issues that you were seeing from young boys today. And because they committed that foul, Pedri on a string to Inigo Martinez on this free kick. He won the battle, that being the number 5 in the air against Hajam, the young left back. And again, probably a marking mistake, and not necessarily by Hajam, but this is a man marking. If we're going to pick our matchups, Inigo Martinez probably shouldn't be put on the 21-year-old left back. I know he's got a little bit of height, but Inigo Martinez won that battle and had this one in for the 3-0. Ferran Torres then had one blocked a few moments later. I guess we'll talk about Ferran Torres here. It was frustrating because Barcelona won 5-0. He played the 90 minutes, but other than that compliment I gave him on the first goal, just struggled to find his mark, find his impact, find his role in this game. It's just frustrating because we want to see Ferran Torres succeed. And I know you'll put down in the comments where you or what you think of Ferran Torres and where you think he needs to belong, either on the bench or out of the club. I get that. I want him to succeed. I just don't want that to be lost in all of my frustrations with how he failed to really make an impact in this game. As I had said, Lamine Yamal also, meanwhile, was getting fouled to bits, hacked up and down, and the yellow cards of frustration were adding up on young boys, which I thought they really were going to get a second yellow somewhere on the field. But when that game was completely out of reach, 3-0, then 4-0 in the second half, they behaved a little bit more because it was already out of reach. They didn't want to lose anybody for the next Champions League match either. And then the 45th minute, Lamine Yamal, a heavy touch with the ball over the top from Pedri. And both those guys probably could have had even better numbers today. They both were in their bag, but it was right into the goalkeeper. And Barcelona at that point, though, 3-0 up. They were playing with plenty of confidence. Everyone hungry for a goal going into halftime. Headline number 4 is men against boys. Another fun little young boys pun, because that's what it felt like at times, especially with the two real men, we'll say, the guys in their mid-30s, Inigo Martinez and Lewandowski. Already spoke about Lewandowski's first goal. Inigo Martinez, he had his first goal, and it could have been either of them, but it's a brace for Lewandowski on the 4-0. It's Rafinha, a corner in. Inigo Martinez diving at the back post to get it back across, as Lewandowski just throws his head in to get on the end of it. That's grit. That's desire. That's just wanting it more. And that's older players understanding, hey, this is exactly how this team needs to be, regardless of how it's scored, skill or not. It doesn't all have to be pretty. Let's get this ball in the back of the net and celebrate and go home happy. Lewandowski was frustrated when he came out of the game because he knew he wanted his hat trick, but still 2 more goals for Lewandowski. Awesome from the Polish striker. And I thought, too, Barcelona won this game as simply as I could say it. Young boys were bad, yes, but the best players for Barcelona were the best players in the game, too. Pedri, Lamine Yamal, they were consistently attracting, as I had already said, double teams, and Pedri in the midfield was being swarmed every time he was on the ball, and yet he was releasing it quickly, moving the ball horizontally, moving the ball vertically, taking care of possession, and then winning the ball back, because then you had guys like Rafinha, Marc Casado fighting for their lives. The players with the lungs were running their hearts out, and if you both have the skill to keep the ball, and then on the moments that you lose it, you have the guys to win it right back, you're going to have a good day at the office. And Rafinha, in particular, he has earned the captain's armband for the way he's played this season, and his teammates nominated him for those reasons with all the other captains out injured. So good on you, Rafinha, for earning the captain's armband and playing like it, being the epitome of the heart and desire that you want to see playing for the Barcelona crest or any crest for any club. And that's why he has a captain's armband now. So all the compliments for Rafinha at this point in the season. And then headline number 5 is rejoice in returns. The last part of that match with the game already decided was all about the players that we just want to see succeed and be healthy and be a part of this winning formula. 63rd minute, particularly for me, standing ovation for Ansu Fati. Now, I didn't stand up on the watch along, but you know that there's one player that I want to succeed this season for Barcelona. It's Ansu Fati. So clearly the Montjuic crowd wants the same thing. I think his teammates want the same thing. So he comes on as a sector fort on for Pedri and Kubarsi. And Kubarsi didn't have the best day. Totally fine, though. Barcelona still had a clean sheet with him coming out of the game, so it really wasn't that terrible of a game. Ansu Fati, when I say rejoice in returns, he wasn't really injured, but he's returning to the field because he wasn't getting on the field in the last few matches that were closer. And it was funny at that point because this is a plug in the future for the watch along tactics board that I would love to break down in the future. But Hansi Flick went with a formation that I don't think I've seen. And I've been doing this now, as you know, for 7 years and watching for 20. There are very rare occasions, very, very, very rare occasions where Barcelona plays a 2-3-2-3 with your 2 as your center backs, the defensive midfielder with the 2 outside backs, and then it was the 2 forwards in Ansu and Rafinha in the middle of the field, basically playing as attacking midfielders, and then Ferran, Lewandowski, and Lamine Yamal up top as a 3. So it really was a 2-3-2-3 for a bit of time there with the 5 forwards. And taking that Cruyff advice to heart, I guess, did Hansi Flick, saying that the best way to defend is to attack. And he took that very seriously, putting on that many attackers, 1 midfielder being Casado. And that does lead to the best opportunity for young boys on the counter, hitting the post. So still the clean sheet was protected. 74th minute, here comes Frankie de Jong. He makes his return. Pau Victor comes on with him. And Lewandowski and Lamine Yamal head off. And this does balance the team a little bit better now. Casado then also playing a bit deeper than de Jong, where it was Pedri as the player to drop in between the center back. So it's telling that maybe it was just in him coming back, but de Jong does play a little bit higher than Casado on that left side, with Ansu then heading out to the left wing as expected. So again, the formation and everything kind of back the way it should be after those 10 minutes of a little bit of chaos. Then the 5-0, Barcelona won the ball back through Pau Victor, and then it's an own goal by Kamara. Another mistake by young boy, more than I can give a compliment to Barcelona. The man nicknamed Piqué, that being Kamara, because he idolized and looked up to Piqué growing up and being a player. But Balde just crossing it in. And while Balde's crosses weren't great, including this one, it deflects off of Kamara into his own net. That's your 5-0. That's your Manito. And then 84th minute, here comes Andres Cuenca, the 17-year-old center back, left-footed center back who's really good with the ball at his feet, tremendously advanced at those skills. But we also saw how he's 17 years old in this game when he came on for Inigo Martinez. It looked like he, at least for the first look I got, it looked like he kept Montero on side. So it looked like no clean sheet on the day. But then we saw the offside. It was very, very close. Not really clear at all, but yes, it was offside. So even though that worked out for him, he still looked 17. Both in the foot races, on the counter, got beat twice. And it was fortunate that young boys weren't able to put it home. And then his hairstyle as well makes him look 17. So Andres Cuenca, at least for him, we didn't see the Fernandez cousins today making their official first team debuts just yet. I think we'll see them soon enough. But Andres Cuenca got his little run out today. Could have been better, but again, he's 17. So any worries about him, I don't have them. I'll worry about him when he's a 21-year-old center back or a 22-year-old center back, when a center back is really supposed to be coming into their own. He has got plenty of time. Not worried about that. For Barcelona, it was a good rebound. There was a lot going on in the Champions League, and you've got to win these games, especially now that they've already dropped one. Their next few games now, because Brest absolutely dominated Red Bull Salzburg today, 4-0. Dortmund put up 7 against Celtic, and Bayern Munich is Bayern Munich. So these next few games in the Champions League are really tough for Barcelona. So this game was of utmost importance, not only to make a statement, but absolutely win the game and show that you belong in that top echelon and upper echelon in the league table. They still got to work their way back up, but results in the next 3 matches will go a long way for Barcelona getting one of those 8 automatic bids in the next round, as opposed to having to fight in the playoffs with 9 through 24, where you then have to fight your way into a playoff into that round of 16. So this was the Champions League, a good way for Barcelona to get back to their winning ways in the Champions League. So it was nice to see Ansu coming back and getting some minutes. It was good to see Frankie de Jong coming back. And hopefully Barcelona, with just Alaves left on Sunday, which I will have a watch along for on Sunday morning here in the East Coast in the US. So with just one match before the international break, and Gabi likely returning after the international break. Bayern Munich, Real Madrid, Espanyol, Borussia Dortmund. So yeah, the international break is going to be important to keep everybody healthy. I'm going to try to get healthy before Sunday against Alaves. Hopefully those extra few days are helpful for me. So I will ask you, for when I feel better, to subscribe to the channel. Remember, I have a 20,000 subscriber gift video coming out during the international break. So subscribe to the channel, give it a like so you don't miss out on any of the content I make, including on the podcast, audio only feed, or Patreon. $3, you can come on as a guest on the watch longs and join me for those conversations there. So that is the perk for being a Patreon. Again, as low as $3. And as always, until next time, as always, Forza Barca.